Now, with the pandemic driven madness that we have all experienced this year, it's time for us to trash the industry buzzwords, fads, and cliches. We look forward to having a very lighthearted, entertaining, and yet very insightful session together with Anthony Howe, Director Partnerships APAC Greensill, Stuart Stoyan, Chief Executive Officer MoneyPlace, Dr. Louise Maynard-Atem, Data Innovation Lead Experian, Naomi Amobi, Legal and Regulatory Counsel, Paystack, Bridie Ohlsson, Chief Executive Officer and Co-founder Geora, as well as our moderators, René, Michau, Head of FinTech Client Advisory, Standard Chartered Bank, and Danielle Zito, FinTech Client Advisory, Standard Chartered Bank. Let's welcome all of them.
Hi guys, welcome to the session. I'm René Michau, and today we're going to be throwing some of the most overused terms, buzzwords, fads, and absurdities in FinTech into the bin. I'd like to introduce my co-host, Danielle, who's going to take you through an overview of our session, and then we'll dive, she'll come back to me and I'll introduce the session to get it rolling.
Thanks, René. And yes, FinTech Fads, this is a Route 101 style session where we're going to be asking our awesome panelists in front of you to present their best, worst idea in FinTech parlance that should be canned, set on fire, and never spoken of again. But a reminder, this is a comedy panel, so anything said in this discussion is not meant to be taken too seriously. It is a lighthearted discussion with plenty of banter, and I mean plenty of banter. We've got a very, very good share of Aussies on this panel. Plenty. So you may find some meaningful gems and genius insights, but I can assure you that is purely accidental. And our delightful panelists have already been announced and their bios are on the website, so please go look it up in your own time, because quite frankly, I'd rather we hand straight back to René to get into the rules and save more time for the laughs. So René, over to you.
Okay, for our panelists, a couple of things to remember. Each panelist will have a turn to present their argument, what should be thrown in the bin. They'll get 2 minutes uninterrupted, after which the entire panel is free to pile in, make fun, and challenge the position. Remember, the judge's decision is final, although the audience will have a chance to vote in a poll. And the judges are also, that's Danielle and I, free to make up the rules as we go along, change them however we like, and appoint a winner. To get the ball rolling, let's go to Anthony Howe of Greensill to put forward his argument. Anthony, what are you throwing in the bin?
Thanks very much, René. Look, I've been thinking long and hard about this, and one of the things that is a stupid little byproduct of buzz phrases of cloud computing that's oozed its way into the general business vernacular is this all-encompassing definition that anything as a service, you can put the sign up now, Danielle, is some sort of API connection or website that you connect to get something done. Now, I'm disappointed about this, and I'm not easily disappointed. The true notion of service really has been co-opted unfairly here. And for that reason, the phrase of as a service really should be trashed. Let me give you an example. One I heard recently, and my latest gripe, particularly for today, is this idea of banking as a service, as if somewhere there's an amazing big website or some big techie plugin that you just connect your business to, and then all of a sudden, bank just happens. So not only is that idea ridiculous, but what's laughable here, and let me call out the elephant in the room, is that the idea of banking being a service should kind of be a given, shouldn't it? So why do we need some sort of big uber techie modern phrase to essentially state the obvious, banking as a service? That's just ridiculous. Banking should already be a service delivered with real services, and maybe even some humans thrown in to make the drudgery of it all feel a bit better. Now, whilst some of the underlying intent and of automation and self-provisioned products and actual services has merit, the metaphor of as a service can really get out of control and sort of leave the non-buzzword compliant folks in the room a bit baffled in a sort of emperor's new clothes kind of way. That's for the Hans Christian Andersen fans in the room. It's better to be just to the point and not make a fatty kind of phrase out of it. So, but don't get me wrong. If FinTech and other organisations are really going to scale, then adoptions of new disciplines like service design as we build new offerings is super important. That's 21st century collaboration methodology, shouldn't be messed with. I love that stuff. Further, the true notion of service is actually a quality user experience delivered by a well-designed staging of systems and people. Just because you make an app or have some money to fund with or make an API, it doesn't mean it's automatically a service. You're not allowed to call it one. No bananas. You have to do a better job than that. Another oldie but a goodie, software as a service, as in software that just works without having to install it somewhere. What a concept. And instead of a once-off purchase, because it's a service, you get to pay for it forever as long as you live in perpetuity. Sneaky, but you have to give the wise shoulders who came before us some sort of capitalistic credit for that. So I guess we could just call it software, and we could just get it to stop crashing and stop making us log in everywhere all the time. So in closing, X as a service, completely ludicrous, trash it. Panel, let's play with this a bit now to illustrate how ridiculous it is. My challenge to you is let's all solve for X now, and we'll try to figure out what you actually mean. Hit me.
Outsourcing panel questions as a service?
Dive in, panelists as a service.
Yeah, panelists, there you go. First one.
Done. I'd like to use this time to announce a new pivot for our business. We're going to move into the as a service offering, where we take a concept and offer that as a service for businesses that can't actually provide that concept. So as a service, here it goes.
Yes,
As a service.
Take my money. Take my money.
However, if I could follow it up, we're also looking for a company that could actually support us in providing as a service. So if you run a business that provides as a service, I'd love to talk to you.
So I'm sensing a lot of support there, Stuart, from some of our panelists. Can we perhaps, does anyone think we should keep as a service?
Yes. Yeah? I totally think that we haven't gone far enough here. I think that there's a real opportunity for us to actually, skinny down the elevator pitch. It's 2020. We're all exiting Zoom rooms as fast as we can enter them.
With a wave.
with a wave and out. And I think that there's an opportunity here for us all to actually work out what each other does, and you have to insert your actual value as a service. We might. I'll hold off on announcing how that would work for me. But I think we need to go even further, Anthony. I think it's got to stay.
I knew you were going to be contrary.
Naomi, Louise, what do you guys reckon?
Yeah.
Are we keeping or binning?
I think we're binning. I think it's on the end of absolutely everything, to the point where it's just completely meaningless, to be honest. I was going to use the example of lending as a service, because lending is a service. What do you mean lending as a service? It's like, it's lending. That's it. It's okay. I mean, I get it. You're allowing other people to lend. That's fine. That's your value proposition. But just the AAS, small a, big S, it serves no purpose anymore. It needs to go. Completely agree with you, Anthony.
Yeah, sorry,
Thanks,
Bridie. I'm going
board.
to side with everyone else on this one. It's like trying to say drive-through as a service, everybody knows what it's there for. We all know what the purpose of it is. We could break it down into smaller segments, but yeah, it serves no purpose to have the as a service at the end. No need.
Just to charge recurring revenue. That's literally all it's for. So.
I think that's where I got to in my extensive research. That's where I got to too.
Yeah.
So basically, the most expensive three letters in the alphabet, we've all overruled Bridie, and we're deciding that the services as a service are all going in the bin. Okay.
In the bin.
Can I just clarify? Is there one winner takes all here? Because I think a couple of us need to revise the rules of a pitch comp.
So there is an ultimate winner. We will appoint a winner. Don't worry.
Don't worry about how. That's not important.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't even matter.
It's a very scientific process that Danielle and I have been working on for months. It's called decisions as a service. So Louise, if you can take us into uncharted territory with data. Sorry, with data is the new oil, I believe, is what you want to bin.
Yes. Yes, it absolutely is. Thank you very much, guys. So I think when I first heard the phrase "data is the new oil," I was like, "Oh, okay, I quite like that. It's a bit snappy. We go with it." I get the analogy. Data is valuable. Oil is valuable. Cool, got it. And then I thought I'd make some refinements. I was like, well, it's not really the new oil. Maybe it's the new crude oil. You know, the chemist in me was just like, well, you know, there's got to be some like fractional distillation going on. So let's go crude oil. So then I was like, okay, maybe I can get on board with data as the new crude oil. But then I think I've just been in so many talks and webinars and read so many articles like data is the new oil. I've now gotten to the point where I've realized it's actually a completely meaningless phrase because data is not the new oil. Oil, for example, is a finite resource. Data, we're swimming in it, will continue to be swimming in it. I don't think that's going anywhere anytime soon. Like mining data, okay, pretty like cost effective, no real cost to it at all. We're all producing data right now. All of the data we have in the world, if you believe various of the thought leaders and futurists that we hear.
Are you saying we're emitting data right now?
Right now, guys, you're all doing it, and I'm constantly mining it through my. No, not really. But you can mine data.
I'm slightly terrified.
Mining data right now, and it wouldn't cost us anything. Whereas, you know, mining crude oil obviously costs us a lot. Very, very, very bad for our planet. You know, basically destroying the planet. You could argue that, you know, data is potentially destroying democracy, but we won't get into that. I think why people like the phrase so much is that, you know, what we're trying to say is that the tech companies that use data to drive their business models, they're really valuable. So it kind of stands to reason that data is valuable. But in my opinion, data is kind of intrinsically worthless. Like what you do with it, what you turn it into, all of those great insights, valuable. Data in and of itself doesn't mean much. And I was reading my spam emails yesterday, as I want to do sometimes. I'm trying to think of, okay, how can I bring spam emails into this conversation? I was thinking, if I got a spam email from my long lost great step uncle, twice removed, that said, I've bequeathed you an oil field, I'd be like, great, quitting my job, picking out interiors for my new super yacht, because I know what that means. I know an oil field is valuable. Like, you know, great, I understand that. I can, you know, retire and live forever. If I got an email saying, okay, here is all of Facebook's data. Let's pretend I didn't work in data for now and say, what would I do with that? What would the value of that data be? I think it would be valuable to me in some ways. It might be valuable to all of you in completely different ways. So the point is that, like, data, the value of it is kind of depends who you're talking to and what you're going to do with it and what your use case is, blah, 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 blah. Whereas with oil, it's like, right, okay, I know if I have an oil field, fantastic, I'm the new Saudi Arabia and I'm going to be rich forever. If I have a whole bunch of data, I might be able to do something with it, I might not. So I was referring back to the Economist article that, well, I think we were all talking about last week, where we had, you know, Google's and whoever else is on like oil tankers in the middle of the sea on the front of the Economist. And I was like, oh, that is exactly what I'm going to talk about. I actually went back and read the article and they didn't actually say that data was the new oil. They alluded, they didn't say it. What they actually said was the world's most valuable resource is now data, which, okay, fine. I could maybe accept that. But data is the new oil simply isn't true. Oil is literally a liquid. It's a fungible, transportable asset. Data is none of those things. We just need to stop saying things that just aren't true, people. That's what we need to do.
So I took two things away from that. The first one being that it's not necessarily the size that counts, but how you use it. Or maybe you didn't say size, but the data that counts is how you use it. The second thing is that
what I meant.
You need a better hobby. If you're reading spam at 3 in the morning, you need a better hobby.
It's actually really enjoyable, guys. You should try it, honestly.
Cool.
Louise, I think the Nigerian in me would be inclined to agree with you, but I've seen too many super yachts and properties seized in recent days. Yikes. Yeah. So I'm inclined to say that data is kind of picking up the pace and is, I mean, in value, it's definitely it's earning its stripes. I think recently we even saw how Zoom is like worth more than ExxonMobil, and like I think that's it's so impressive, and it's crazy that, you know, with the pandemic, this is only likely it's only likely to go it's only likely to increase from here.
I agree on the point that data is valuable, sure, but I think it's the oil bit, because there's just so many differences. There's so many other ways I think we can say data is valuable without comparing it to like a 20th century buzz commodity that, if we try and treat data, actually one of my other arguments is if we try and treat data the same way that we treat oil and like we hoard it and we stick it in silos, and then my argument fell apart because that's exactly what large enterprises do. So there you go. Sorry, I cut you off.
I think we might be doing exactly that, Louise.
Yeah, I know. That's why I didn't use that argument, because I was like, oh wait, I just ended in a ... in my notebook because I had nothing more to add.
I think when you look at an oil refinery, like you were saying before, Louise, I think the appearance of something valuable is probably easier to achieve for oil because it's a physical construct. I can't imagine getting excited about looking at the data of Facebook when it's handed to me on a USB stick. It's just not working out. That visual spectacle is just not quite the same. I really need to see the sort of tanks and cylinders and smoke and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And the metaphor is just not working out for me, so I have to agree with you.
Excellent. Any dissenters? That's a question.
You're on mute, René. Someone's cut your mic off.
No, I did that on purpose. This is all part of throwing out the buzz. I think we should throw out the "you're on mute" buzz. All right, where are we, folks? Are we putting it in the bin? Yes, no, yes.
Well, yes for me, obviously.
Okay, okay. I'll tell you what. We're putting it beside the bin, like the recycling. We'll make a decision later.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Coming back to that one.
Bridie.
Yes.
Your turn. 2 minutes. Tell us what you're throwing in the bin.
All right. Okay. So we're halfway through this week. Is that halfway through? And already there's been a ton of discussions about various tokens, central bank digital currency tokens, crypto tokens, digital commodity tokens. And I think it's really time that we Marie Kondo'd this. And in order to bring in any more, we got to throw one out. And for me, the one that has to go is the Women in FinTech token. And to be clear, I do not mean the women. We are here. We are not going anywhere. So what I suggest needs to go directly in the trash is the tokenization of women in FinTech. And you know this token, right? But just for clarity's sake, I'm going to walk us through what we know is already the technical standard token for women in FinTech. So first of all, you need to ensure that the token is created as close to the event date. Once realised that panel of 3 white middle-aged male finance executives lacks diversity. And so here you're going to use the Women in FinTech constructor to create one woman token, because woman equals diversity. Even if woman equals white middle-aged finance executive, return diversity. And if you don't have a woman, return last used female from your previous panel. Else, search most recent top 5 women in FinTech list for someone that you know or someone that you know knows. And here, industry equals any, regardless of panel topic. So what we get to now, we've created our non-diverse echo chamber panel, and it's time to call the question function on the token. So there's a question function. There's 5 available arguments to pass into the function, and whenever called, the output is immediately discarded. We know that there are a few other functions available on this token. We can increase the diversity metric by 100. It mitigates from actually needing to invest in diversity. And at any point during execution, a male token can interrupt the function and replace with own. So with that, you're ready to deploy your WIF, your Women in FinTech 2020 token. Just set the gas limits to male discomfort at 200,000. Okay, so I've got a lot of issues with this token. Mainly, it's roughly deployed, it lacks substance and creativity, and just like its predecessor, the ERC20 token, the WIF 2020 is often a scammy front masking something pretty dodgy. So, yeah, in the interest in technical excellence, it has to go in the trash.
Oh, I heart this so much.
Just on delivery alone, that is weird.
I don't know whether I'm
Very
kind of
well
like
done, Bridie.
I'm under the collar because you just spoke to me in code. But actually, I'd have to say, because you spoke to me in code, I'm sorry, I'm going to need a man to explain that. Everything, I need a man to explain that.
I was just going to say, I think a male perspective is really useful in this argument, and I think we need to hear a lot more from men generally. And I was just going to explain for everyone listening what Bridie was actually trying to talk about, just in case you missed it. What she's kind of saying is that she doesn't want this idea of women in fintech. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Bridie, but don't cut in on me.
How long are women on the panel going to let Anthony talk for? I think.
Look, I think what Anthony's caught on to here, right, is that what was really needed, while that was well articulated, is we need a mansplaining as a service offering that could actually to the people. Because I don't know, I mean, in my sort of feeble sort of man brain, but I didn't quite follow what you were getting at.
Yeah.
Perfect. Any other thoughts on that? Naomi and Louise, you look like you're quite a fan of the tokenization of women in fintech.
Definitely. I mean, I personally, never experienced it. I've been called on just to, add some flavor to panels at the last minute. Never happened to me personally, but I can totally empathize with you, Bridie, about how that might feel if it had ever happened to me, which it hasn't. Just to point out.
And I think it's good to get the empathy check here, Louise. And René, can I just test something out on you? The number one question that I'm asked as a female on a fintech panel is, what is it like being a woman? Sometimes just stop there. Or woman. So I think it would be helpful if we flip this. So René, what is it like being a man in fintech?
Well, I'm glad you asked.
Your question
I'm glad you asked. What I am going to say, right, as a man in fintech, is it doesn't feel very different to being a man anywhere else, to be honest. And I'm fundamentally displeased with the body hair situation. I think something's got to be done about that. It's a really disappointing aspect. And I'm so glad you brought it up, because a fintech conference is the perfect time for me to be able to espouse my gender issues. All right, team. Where are we at from a position perspective?
Thoroughly in the bin.
Yeah, I agree, in the bin.
Yeah, I feel no retribution's only fair.
Absolutely.
It's just retribution. It's not that I actually think anything either way about the topic. In fact, I mostly agree, but just because Bridie didn't back me, I'm not going to back her either.
We're playing tactical now, I see.
We need a quality agreement here, Anthony.
I think you accidentally built anger as a service into your token there, Bridie. I think that's
retribution.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
This one had me from the very, very beginning. It's got to go.
Judges overruled any other decisions. Excellent.
All right. Bringing us into another thoroughly overused term and, a topic that we hear a lot about. Naomi, I'm going to invite you to take the stage. Tell us all about your point of view and what absolutely has to get trashed.
Thank you, René. Well, I essentially want to debunk this whole notion that cross-border payments are seamless, specifically global remittances. It's a label that's often applied when we see new fintech products and services being made available to consumers. And, we love this seamless catchphrase. But the reality is that, cross-border payments are not always as frictionless as we might expect, mainly because of, stringent regulatory requirements and like bank partnerships that some service providers have to comply with. One of the drawbacks we see from like the African consumer's perspective is a lack of options and limited jurisdictions for payments. You might register with a fintech only to find that there are 5 or 6 countries you can transfer payments to within Africa, but those aren't the countries you necessarily want to deal with. It's a large continent. There are 54 countries with people that you might want to transact with. So when individuals and businesses experience these restrictions, they they have to rely heavily on traditional, lengthier, and like more expensive banking payment methods or independent peer-to-peer transfers. Of course, no offense, René and Danielle, we don't see Standard Chartered as a traditional bank.
Thank you. You are surrounded by our worship bankers.
But in addition, you can sign up with a fintech that guarantees worldwide payments, and after the fact, you realize there are all these hoops you have to jump through for KYC purposes. There are certain solutions you can't take advantage of if you don't have a foreign account. There are transfer fees that are charged in a foreign currency, and there might also be fees your bank may impose that the service provider won't have any control over. Like the list goes on. So we also can't ignore how volatile markets have been since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. When transaction fees are pegged against foreign currency rates, the conversion can be extraordinarily painful if you're dealing in a local currency. And the pandemic has definitely, pushed more people to transact online and activate accounts. But, according to the World Bank, like fewer cross-border payments have been made because of the economic crisis. So I can't knock fintechs that are doing, like an amazing job of trying to offer simple solutions. They've done their best to make cross-border payments as convenient as possible under the circumstances, but there's still a long way to go before we can confidently say these payments are seamless. There's a lack of a global standard, and payment systems vary greatly across different markets. So when it comes to operational efficiency and consistency, cross-border payments they're not seamless.
A lot of people nodding along sagely on that one, I think. But yeah, is this something you're putting in the bin? Like, come on, like this is one that I have to say is very close to my heart. So what is our panel thinking?
Naomi,
Are the
payments, regardless of whether they're seamless or not, are the payments actually cross-border? Like, does the money actually go across the actual border and land on the other side, or is it like some sort of balance transfer thing on either side? Like, is it even accurate?
It's usually, I think it depends on the model you decide to execute. But sometimes it is like a balanced transfer situation. Yeah.
I think what you're talking about is this all comes back to Spanx. And so if you think of Spanx as being seamless body sort of shaping form, what you're describing there is it's all about smoke and mirrors, right? And so
are you mansplaining, Stuart?
Spanx is seamless just as cross-border transfers are seamless. And yes, I am mansplaining as a service.
Yeah, Naomi, the best way, I love TransferWise, but the only way I've been able to make it truly seamless has been to get engaged to one of their employees.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man.
That's very good to know. I will recommend that to all of my colleagues.
That's a very, very scalable model right there.
Absolutely.
They're growing fast. 2,000 employees.
That's the kind of thing a woman in fintech would do.
Hey, but on the all-encompassing TransferWise though, husband as a service, that's their new offering.
Yeah, announcing shortly.
Does he travel across the border with cartons of cash in his bags? Because that sounds like that would work.
Yeah, it's becoming quite a long distance relationship.
Definitely. That makes it sound less seamless. All right. So seamless, a word that originally came from the textile industry and has found its way mysteriously into fintech. What are we doing with that? Is that going in the fiery trash can?
Can definitely trash seamless.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Never been.
Yeah.
Yep. Definitely needs some zippers built in. Right. Where are we?
Stuart, your turn to bring us home.
Alrighty, so bringing it home, my term to put in the bin is Neo. So this is not about the red pill or the blue pill, as you'd sort of throw back to Matrix for everybody who's, reminiscing on the 1990s. But it's about how people think that just simply adding the Neo moniker to something is a way to create value. So for some reason, there's an arms race to be the Neo. First, it was Neo banks. Then we saw Neo lenders. I've recently seen a Neo broker. The one that took it for me, though, was the Neo non-bank. That then came out and tagged themselves. It's like, what the heck? But look, if you're going to drill it down a bit, what are we actually talking about? A neobank is often positioned as the ultimate fintech. Call it the defender of the universe, the Voltron of fintechs. But actually, what a neobank is just a way to be able to destroy shareholder value by taking too long to come to market with a subpar offering. Most neobanks have cited their rapid consumer growth and customer growth, but this growth bought. Neobank playbook is basically, here's a savings account. We'll give you $25, $50, whatever it is, if you sign up. So sure, a bunch of unemployed millennials who are looking for a way to be able to fund their next smashed avocados on toast, sign up, take the $25, move on and sign up with the next neobank. What then follows
I like
next?
smashed avocado.
But what then followed on from that though, is that you see the neobanks get smashed themselves through COVID. Why? Because they've brought this all singing, all dancing deposit product to market, but they've forgotten the bank bit means you need another side of the ledger. They don't have lending products. So what were neobanks doing through COVID? They were just a really, really expensive customer acquisition vehicle that gave money away for free so that Anthony and his millennial mates could go out and get smashed avocado. And the thing then that sits, and this sort of it always perplexes me about neobanks, right? The concept of a neobank is actually really, really hard to get up. So what is neobank? A neobank is actually like launching half a dozen fintechs at the same time. You got a consumer lender, a mortgage provider, a transaction account, a financial wellness app, a payments app, a seamless international payments app, I should say, and so on. So what are you going to do? So you really think that as a neobank, you're going to have a better proposition than 5 or 6 other individual fintechs whose singular focus is on delivering the best personal loans, transaction account, or whatever it may be, and you think that you're going to collectively be better? Come on. And look, as it turns out, you don't actually even have to be a bank to be a neobank. And to give a shout out to the neobank Doe, who last week got bitch slapped by the regulators, not so much because their stock price had soared 500% in 5 or 6 weeks, but it was because the regulators came back and said, actually, if you want to call yourself a neobank, you actually have to be a bank. And so to even be a neobank today, you do not even have to be a bank. So just to be really clear and to bring it home, just because you have an app or a website, people, does not make you neo. Simply because you don't have a physical presence, it doesn't make you neo. Because by that measure, Singapore FinTech Festival in 2020 would be the world's first Neo FinTech Festival. Well done, guys. Woohoo. So my vote, let's set Neo on fire. Just like most of the neobanks have set their shareholders' investments on fire. Put it in the bin.
Scathing.
Scathing. My God.
Stu, you
So many different
totally had me,
paragraphs.
mate. I was there the whole way until you called me a millennial because I like smashed avocado and you just totally lost me. I just want a smashed avocado on toast
Neo
now.
smashed avocado.
Neo's
Exactly. But do these so-called neo banks offer tokenization of women in fintech as a service? I mean, this is the ultimate question.
I mean, that really would be Neo.
So what are we thinking?
There is something there though, Neo just means new, right? And new hasn't had a rebranding in a really long time. It could be quite helpful. I know we had the Jacinda Ardern, the PM of New Zealand, speaking just before
I believe it's Nouveau Zealand, Bridie?
Nouveau Zealand, yeah.
Plenty of avocado toast there.
Thanks for neo mansplaining there, Stuart.
That's okay.
I have to agree with Stuart on this one, though. I think, the neo thing is just it's ridiculous. I mean, we all know that all of these banks, they're all about solving financial inclusion because they have an app and a card that is brightly coloured, obviously. So I think that's what that's all about, though. So we don't need a neo tag on the front of that. We just need an app and a coloured card.
The kicker for me, though, is a lot of the neobanks are now pivoting into providing banking as a service, which is phenomenal.
How does that
That's
even
the
work?
beginning of the end.
But how can we put it in the bin there? What are they going to call themselves? They can't call themselves as a service if they can't call themselves Neo. They're going to run out of names.
Thanks, René.
What? No way. Naomi, what do you think?
Oh gosh. I have to agree with Stuart on this one as well. So I'm siding with Stuart and Louise. Yeah.
Perfect. Alrighty. So we're going to put the Neo banks into the Neo bin with Neo everything else.
But watch out, because they all know Kung Fu.
Exactly.
I just want to give props to Danielle for the font that she created for that Neo sign. Though.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, exactly. I was trying to do the
was
Matrix.
Yeah.
Okay. We had really wonderful presentations of some really good concepts there. I think you guys would have seen that in the chat there is actually a link to vote if the audience would like to vote. We'll give you guys a minute, but just to recap on some of the amazing ideas we've heard. I mean, X as a service, we've heard that go through pretty much the whole way. Data is the new oil, or is it? Of course, the tokenization of women in fintech, the seamless cross-border payments, and Neo everything. Some fantastic, terrible topics. But which one should we really not just be throwing in the bin, but actually setting on fire so we never speak of it again? One quick round from the panel. Which one's the favorite? Anthony, start with you.
You can't choose your own.
X. Choose my own adventure.
Choose your own adventure.
Oh, it's a tough one. I'm on the fence.
Definitely X as a service.
X as a service?
Neo fence?
I mean, I think all of them are equally burnable, but yeah, there can be only one really. Actually, no, because the rules can dictate anything. You can do whatever you want. I'm just sort of advocating for a single winner.
I would very much like to be able to change the rules to make it so that we have multiple winners. But what do you think, René? Judge's call?
So I have to say, like, the arguments have been great. You know, we've had, you know, our panelists as a service have really put forward some very strong Neo arguments. You know, I think we've managed to fulfill our quota of tokenized women in fintech on the panel.
Definitely.
Which at the last minute came through for us. It's been also fantastic to have such great men on the panel to actually explain things in simpler terms in such a seamless way. I mean, it's really been.
And I mean, there's been almost like no interruptions. Would you even believe that? But,
Absolutely. I'm speaking. And what's lucky is throughout the whole session, none of us have slipped on any of the new oil and spilt data everywhere. So that's been pretty good, to be honest. But overall, I think that we have to say that when we come through to the end of the day, I'm just going to torch everything. Really, 2020 year that is a dumpster fire. So put it all in the dumpster and let it rip.
What, much like your T-shirt?
I don't know if anyone can see that.
Oh, nice.
Visual
I didn't notice that before.
Me either. And some like data oil sprinkled on top to like
exactly
to fan the flames. So I'd like to put a shout out to our audience. Thank you all very much for putting up with us carrying on like pork chops on the video conference. Thank you so much to our panelists, Anthony Howe, Bridie Ohlsson, Naomi Amobi, Louise Maynard-Atem, and Stuart Stoyan. And thank you so much to Danielle for keeping me company as a great host. It's been such a fun panel. I hope you're all enjoying the Singapore FinTech Festival and really just making the most of this. So thank you all very much. And we'll cut back to our studio.
Everybody wave.